Greetings, this is Griff Ruby with yet another Isaac Asimov short story. And this one is called Christmas Without Rodney. It actually is listed on the cover. A new robot story by Isaac Asimov, Christmas Without Rodney. I dare say I think this story is what has the cover on this issue. What is this? Mid-December 1988 issue of Isaac Asimov's science fiction magazine, and I dare say it has the cover. So this young boy, kind of a bratty looking kid, and we'll learn a little bit about him inside the story, and behind that is one of the robots of interest. There are two robots actually of interest. One is named Rodney, and the other one is named Rambo. So let's talk about that. Now, let's see. Listed as being on page 18. Nothing further said about that. It's just one of the short stories. Christmas Without Rodney, Isaac Asimov, page 18. So you go to 18, and it has a nice piece of artwork, a rather familiar looking robot from the cover. Yeah, so that kind of proves it. And a little bit more artwork from some sort of a face there of somebody in the story. I don't think it's the young kid in that case like it is in the cover. Okay. So it has a little squib. Let's read the squib. Art was by Gary Freeman, by the way. It says, Christmas Without Rodney is Dr. Asimov's first robot story since Robot Dreams, which actually came out mid-December 1986. So it's another robot story, and true Susan Calvin, Powell and Donovan, although those guys are long gone, but it's the same category. Okay, sort of story. Robots of the three robotic laws. And so, the earlier story was nominated for both the Hugo and the Nebula Awards. I assume that's Robot Dreams. And it won a landslide victory for Best Short Story in our own Readers' Award poll. We are pleased to be the first to publish his new tale, which is both an amusing and an acerbic social satire. So, you have this couple, Gracie, the man's wife. I don't know if it ever says the name of the man himself. And Howard. Okay, Gracie and Howard. And they have a robot named Rodney. Apparently, Rodney's a bit more of an old-fashioned robot, tuned to working in somewhat more old-fashioned households, in which I guess the robot manually goes into a fairly conventional human-type kitchen and goes in there and makes everything, along with its other duties and so forth. So it's kind of old-fashioned. New-fashioned robots, they're the son and daughter-in-law. Son has a name, I don't think, Delancie, who doesn't seem to have any speaking parts as far as I can see, and his wife, Hortense. Well, there's a name for you. And let's just say that he picked her because, with her help, he's one of our more upwardly mobile, bottom-line individuals. He married Hortense because she has excellent connections in business and can help him in that upward shove. At least I hope so, because if she has another virtue, I have never discovered it. Yeah, not even a name worth having. I mean, I'm sorry, there's just some names that, at least for me personally, just don't work. I don't know, what kind of, I think naming your daughter Hortense would be even worse than naming your son Percival. That's pretty bad. I mean, there's just some names that, I don't know, once upon a time, I guess they made sense. First name I ever heard was actually in the Bible. Prophet Hosea was asked to take a harlot for a wife, and the harlot's name was Gomer. Well, surprise, surprise, surprise. So, okay, Gomer takes the record for the name a girl should not be given, but Hortense comes pretty darn close, in my subjective opinion. Sounds horrible. Okay, horrible Hortense. Anyway, Hortense and Delancie have a son I think we see his name. Let's see, LeRoy. And LeRoy. So this is LeRoy. We have a face to put with the name. Get it up close here. That's LeRoy. And LeRoy's your typical spoiled brat kid who's never had to really achieve anything and yet, kind of live it up, take it easy. So that's a grandson, but I would swear to Hortense's fidelity because I'm sure no one would voluntarily touch her, but I gotta admit that putting him through a concrete mixer would improve him no end. Okay, this is Asimov invoking his older concept of humor, generally unsuccessful, but this is almost deliberately unsuccessful humor here. The overall story has a good funny humor to it all, but the occasional little bits like that are kind of attempts to bring in some of the kind of humor you'd have seen in, what was that one that I really hate? An early story, Magnificent Possession. I actually remembered it. It's not worth remembering, but I covered it. I cover every story. So we've given Rodney the time off. They decide to give their robot Rodney a vacation because you see Delancie and Hortense and LeRoy have brought with them their own robot named Rambo, who of course is the latest model you can imagine and designed to work with modern kitchens that are tailored strictly to being worked by a robot who really does little more than push the right buttons to give you what you ask for. Rambo goes inside a more familiar human-type kitchen and is out of its depth. So what ends up happening is they've got this very cumbersome arrangement where Rodney, well, his vacation seems to be not that he goes off somewhere and spends time, laying out in the sun or playing tennis or sailing or some other vacation type activity. He sits in a closet and is allowed, just have no duties, just enjoy his own thoughts for a few days while the Delancie and family are there with their robot Rambo. But Rambo doesn't know how to work the human type kitchen, and they want some foods and so forth. So it seems like it would have been obvious. Rodney is, after all, on hand. He doesn't have to do anything, but let him simply provide advice, instruction to Rambo. Problem being, there is no robotic law about robots being obliged to obey other robots. So you've got this, as I said, cumbersome arrangement where Rodney would convey to Howard what needs to be done in whatever language is most appropriate. Howard would then give the order to Rambo, and since he's a human giving Rambo an order, Rambo would of course carry it out. Seems to me all he really had to do was give Rambo an order to heed Rodney's instructions as to how to work the kitchen. See, now ordinarily you're right. Rodney would now have no authority with Rambo to tell him what to do. But if he's ordered, all right, Rambo, I have designated Rodney as a robot that will instruct you as to how to do this kitchen. You are to follow his instructions. That is my order. So long as you are here in this household for the few days you are here. And Rambo will just say, yes, human. And he does it, of course. That would have been problem solved, but somehow nobody thought of that. Oops. Oh well. I think the story kind of suffers from that. But the idea is all the general annoyance that seems to occasion finally culminates in the young LeRoy deciding he wants to try to kick Rodney. I don't know why Rodney has finally come to be around instead of just staying in his closet and providing Howard with advice to convey to Rambo, but he's somewhere where LeRoy is out and about and has has in some way inconvenienced LeRoy, not intentionally, of course. A robot would never do such a thing. LeRoy likes to be kind of stupid. So, where is it, you old puke? Oh, little LeRoy wants his presents now, and not Christmas morning. So he says, so where's my present, you old puke? And Rodney says, I don't think it would be wise to tell you, little master. That would disappoint Gracie and Howard, who would like to give the presents to you tomorrow morning. Listen, said little LeRoy. Who do you think you're talking to, you dumb robot? Now I gave you an order. You bring me those presents to me. And in an attempt to show Rodney who was master, he kicked the robot in the shin. Yeah, and so he tries to blame the robot for the injury to his foot because his shoe or whatever, and socks and so forth, came off, and he hit it very hard with a bare foot. Rodney is a robot. He's made of metal. And a human foot hits the metal. Anyone's ever stubbed a toe, especially really, really bad, has an idea of, yeah, that really hurt. A human has been harmed. But not by anything the robot had done. Indeed, not by anything the robot could meaningfully have prevented, even out of the, you can't allow a human to come to harm through inaction. But this was done so fast before the robot could do anything, little LeRoy's foot is injured. Maybe even broke a toe or something. So, all of that being the case, there's this whole thing where they have to worry about Hortense trying to claim that Rodney had injured a human and therefore must be destroyed because he didn't follow the robotic laws. But it's a horrible Christmas. We tried to do it without you. We'll never do that again. And then Rodney, well, what thoughts did Rodney have while sitting in that closet having a vacation? It's almost like a footnote to the whole story, but it's actually the whole point of the story. All this other was just distraction. Your typical thing where there's 100 things going on at Christmas time. I think of a Shrek holiday special, kind of, it's crazy going on. And so what ends up happening is, while he was sitting there, he was thinking he had drummed up within himself a wish that the robotic laws did not exist. Now, he has no power to disobey those laws, yet he had inside himself some kind of a wish that he wasn't almost obliged to follow them. So, it ends with this interesting thought. What do I do? What do I do? Alright. What need you do? I mean, I forgot her name. Hortense. Gracie. Gracie loves having Rodney. Rodney's the perfect robot around the house. So there's absolutely no intent of letting him go. But you got a robot who's actually expressed a desire that the laws of robotics somehow not apply to him. What do you do? What do you do? I don't see why there has to be a reason to do anything. So, I've given it away. I don't think there's really much left to spoil. It's been a fun little story in its own way. It is collected into the Robot Visions book. That one we will cover a few stories in the future. And of course, the title story for this book, Robot Visions, not to be confused with Robot Dreams, are the only new stories in this book. Everything else is from the 40s and 50s and a little bit from the 60s and 70s. That's it. So, it's just a collection of robot stories that nearly all of which, except for Robot Visions, we'll get to that a little further down the pike, are collected in other places. Well, thanks for listening.